Let's have a conversation around that with Mr. Bode, who is immediate past SSA to the President on political matters. He's also initiator of G2C, that's G2C interface, as government to citizens interface. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Bukola. Good morning, Nigerians. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you as well.
Thank you, sir.
You know, in the middle of all of this, the engine of government has to keep flowing. The cycle of activities have to be sustained and all of that. First of all, let's begin with Professor Soyinka's comment, about his visit to the president. The visit, the idea of the visit, after which he himself describes as an embarrassing visit, having advised against it and all of that. How much of that is political? How much of that is friendly? What do you make of all of
that? Let me say, first of all, that you must agree that Professor Wole Soyinka has been a long-term friend of the president. If I recall that exactly 10 years ago, when we used to organize, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu colloquium every year, he was actually the chairman of that particular colloquium 10 years ago, 2013. And I remember he said a few things about him which are personal. That's one. Then two, I would say that, Yoruba says that, can I say that? In adage, they say it's Agbakiwa Loja Kori Omo Tuntun Wo. In other words, you do not have the elders in the market square, and then a newborn will have its head turn in the wrong direction. So in other words, we don't expect the nation to go wrong when you have elders in town. Now, I see Professor Wole Soyinka as someone who is completely unpolitical, unbiased, very objective in anything he does and says. And I think that he's looking at the president right now as a friend and saying to his face, I have an idea of the kind of things he might have discussed. I have an idea, clear idea. Looking at him and say, look, if this is going this way, it has to go that way. And I think we need elders in this land at this time who are completely unbiased. You might know that we have many others who have one way or the other, who have some other things behind their minds. But that's not the Nigeria we need right now. We need a Nigeria that stands as one, and one that looks into the president's eyes to say, let's get things right. That's what I think. So I don't believe this is anything political. I think it's friendly, and I think it's, looking at the stage of elder statesman and speaking to the nation.
Would you also say that his 7-point agenda is not political? If you said you have an idea.
So. I have a clear idea, yeah.
Okay, so what kind of things could be on that list?
We are starting too early on that then. If you follow Professor Wole Soyinka clearly, you see he speaks completely all the time about a particular thing, which is the centralization of government. He says it all the time. And you see, for the kind of nation that we have right now, and the kind of nation I think we've had for a while, we have not even defined the kind of democracy that we really need in our nation, Nigeria. We have not defined the kind of governance that we need. I might look at the nation, this is probably preferring solutions, I don't know if it is, but I think that the kind of nation we need right now is the one that goes back to focusing on the geopolitical zones, 6 of them, and then removing that too much power from the central. This is just my suggestion, right? So that every single time we have things to discuss, we do not have 36 state governors in Abuja and a president. No, rather we'll be having smaller people, clusters, meetings. I hope that's well, that goes somewhere.
I'd like to know more that may be on that list, but first of all, it's important that I take you up on your perceived unbiased, acceptance of the disposition of the Nobel laureate.
Yeah.
If we went by events of 2015, because he has asked us to also situate his refusal to criticize the president now, based on his antecedents. But if we went by events of 2015, when he didn't support former President Goodluck Jonathan's re-election bid, and he said at that time that, former President Muhammadu Buhari should be viewed as a born-again Democrat. Should we see that as an extension of his support for his friend and current president, Bola Tinubu?
Let me go deep, a bit into governance. You see, we do not see a lot of things on the outside, but those on the inside, they see things clearer. It is completely impossible to come into office anywhere in the world, maybe, but I know about Nigeria, to come into office and then be ready to run in 2 months or in 6 months. It's completely impossible. For the kind of people we have, for the kind of economy we run, you need a minimum of 6 to 1 year before you understand what's before you. May I recall that a question was asked, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, Goodluck Jonathan, and I'll try to remember the third person, 3 presidents of this country, who told us that Buhari was Buhari, who told us after a little while that if they had told me that this is the way this country was, I wouldn't have believed it. Why? Because from outside, you are looking at the situation differently. When you get inside, you see exactly the picture. The best footballers are those spectators. When you are given the boots to play, then you realize that the field could be against you. In fact, your friends and colleagues can be against you. So I see the reason why he says no. Let me not say nothing.
You're reiterating what he has said.
Yes.
But what I really, I'm hoping that you would respond to is if, events of the past prove that indeed his disposition is more of a subtle support for Mr. President, whom he admits is his friend.
Look, let me finish with, or let me just move directly to that. So if I say that, if the professor says I'm not supporting the second term bid, that meant you had finished 4. In other words, we could score you based on those. That's the idea here. We're talking about someone who just came into office. You see, there's a difference, right? Yeah. So then let me think that supporting the president right now, I think it's something we all really need to do. I believe strongly that the leadership of the nation right now is something we all need to do. Why? Because we're coming from somewhere and the economy has not been nice at all. So if you want to put that load on this person who just came in, I don't think it will be fair.
But before you go ahead with that, also, you say that the Nobel laureate is neutral, is unbiased.
Yes.
But in recent times, his utterances, have caused some Nigerians to think otherwise, particularly his engagement with the obedience, when he said that the obedience didn't win the election and the obedience came after him. In fact, the leader of the movement had cause to visit him, to temper that down. So if we, assess that trajectory, that pattern of events, do you still think that he's been unbiased, has been neutral in the scheme of things, particularly if we weigh that also, against the backdrop of his friendship with the current president?
I would rather plead with you to allow us to go past the election period, please. Let's let this election stuff, obedience, the Tinubu team, and let's let that go. We are sitting and running Nigeria now. How can we run this nation? We are not in good, we don't have a good condition right now. Let me put it, I'm trying to choose my words. The economy of the world is bad at this point, the world. So, and I don't think Nigeria is, is out of that. We are all facing terrible times. That's the reason I'm saying I think we need to come together and support the leadership right now. It's not about separating one party against the other. I think we do that too much.
Well, the politics
it's not a separation, but you can go ahead. Yeah. It's an attempt to view things objectively.
I'm trying to avoid going in or poking the ideas of obedience and all of that. I mean, I don't think we need.
The point here, part of the point that Bukola is trying to make is that, and you would definitely agree with that. A lot of our government or developmental issues are politicized. We're talking about health, it's politicized. Education, it is politicized. Employment, it is politicized. The oil sector, it is politicized. Almost everything is politicized. So in most cases, people tend to view things from the political telescope as opposed to looking at whatever the issues are. The political rhetoric by the political leaders themselves lend credence to that. So if Nigerians are going to see things the way you're seeing it, you're going to have to politically advise us to see things differently. So how do we move past that? Because the trust quotient has been degraded over the years. We can't say that enough. And it is all because of this politicization. So if people are seeing whatever it is that is going on between the president and Professor Wole Soyinka, it will be difficult to depoliticize their perspective.
I cannot disagree with you, really, because we've taken a long trip down this lane. It's really been for years. Almost everything we do. In fact, as it is right now, you can tell that most of the appointments that we have in the country is viewed in certain ways to be, oh, we're trying to please one area. That's part of being political. The same thing in the past government, which was House. So I look at a situation, really, I'm used to looking at it that way. Let's find a solution and not begin to or amplify the problems we have. There are problems, we understand. How can we solve them?
And it begins with the communication to the people. How?
I do not know if you permit me to come up with this idea, what G2C is. It's actually a platform we created while I was in office, and we're still running it, to bring the Nigerian people, the citizens, to a roundtable conversation with the people in government, from small places to big places. The idea is to allow what we really call democracy, is the involvement of the people in government. That's what it means, really. So how do we get people to say, this is what we want, not what you think we want? Let me let you know this, that a lot of things that we think, oh, that the president should know, more than half of them, they do not know the real picture of things. Why? Because it's easier anywhere to have yes people around you, to have sycophants around you, than to have people look into your eyes and tell you, that's not the way, that's not what's going on out there. And that's why I think that Professor Wole Soyinka is, I believe that that's the kind of person he is. If you find other people come to the president right now and say, I'm not too sure, they are not trying to be, looking for benefits and all that. But I don't believe it's
should it be so? You said, a good number of things, without quoting you copiously, that are happening, the president doesn't know. Should it be so? The president had cause to go round the country ahead of his election. He had a lot of engagements with Nigerians. He had a lot of engagement with groups. And he couldn't have said at that time that as a result of his trip around the country, he didn't have a firm knowledge of the challenges. So why 6 months down the line do you think that because he has sycophants around him, he's not abreast of what exactly is going on in the country?
Bukola, trust me, it doesn't work the way you think it does. When you go around the nation trying to campaign, it doesn't work that way at all. You do not know exactly at that point what the people are asking for. You're only going out to campaign. You see, there are systems that work around your campaign within your party. You campaign, against one other party and then go into elections. These are different things. When you go around the nation meeting out to the people, meeting the people and all of that, they are usually not the people. Do you even want to know that a lot of times when you go around that way, the people there are telling you, please remember us, do this. People don't go for, look at my people and look at what we need. We hardly hear that. I've been around the nation a number of times. Well, that's not what we hear.
Mr. Gore, it will be difficult for anyone to agree with you for a number of reasons. One of which is the president, the federal government, and I don't care which president was ever in office, has had the opportunity to break the government, to to decentralize. Your ransomware report, I don't know how many times we've talked about that one. True federalism, I don't know how many times we've talked about that one. Decentralize or what's the word now? Relinquish some powers to the states. I don't know for how long we've heard that one, and the president, whichever president it is, still has those things holding on. But I'm not the only one asking questions. Our colleagues in Abuja have questions for you as well. Go ahead, Nelta.
All right, thank you, Ayo. Mr. Bori, thank you for coming on to the show. You've spoken quite copiously about the things that the president is out to do and what he has promised, and that matter of the president may not know everything happening around him based on the fact that, or he may not have people that are ready to look him in the face and tell him things objectively as they are. But let's look at this, what the president does know and the comments and promises he has made to Nigerians. For instance, we'll start off from that matter of a 50% discount for transportation. Indeed, that promise was made, and it also happened in some places. But you see, the manner of communication. The president made a promise to put Nigerians first at every point in time. There are those who will say that putting Nigerians first is not effectively being communicated. So 50% discount there were 4 companies listed in that press statement that was released. But it only applied, when you go to the country, it applied to only 3 routes. That wasn't known to the public. Is that how we're going to be carried along? How then would people begin to understand the vision and mission the president is on if it is not effectively communicated to the people that he has promised to put first?
Okay, you see, I remember that this idea of 50% discount on transportation was given just a few days ago. I do not believe that there was enough time to plan that and carry that through the whole of the nation. I do not believe that was enough time. Let me see this as a starter. In other words, maybe some other times when we have festive seasons this way, we would have had better knowledge of what to do, and then it might run better at those times. For it to run good at this point will cost a lot of more trouble or even time. If you know what I mean. It's just a few days ago. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not saying that was right, or, that many people should not have benefited from it. No, that's not my point. I hope that other times, in days to come, those things will be better planned and better executed. That's what I think. Aneta.
So let me ask you then. Yeah. I know that you seem to agree with Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka that it is quite early in the day to criticize. Yeah. I mean, he has said, "I give at least a year to see that to see how they're performing before I begin to." Give my own public opinion on certain things. But I want to ask you if you think that we're currently on track, because some people who say that morning tells the day. If a government is going to get it right within the next 4 years, we should begin to know from the steps that they have taken so far. From what you have seen from the cabinet that has been appointed and some of the economic policies that have been pelted out, would you say that we are on the right track?
That's kind of tricky. Let me just hope that maybe step by step, time by time, that the things that are, rolled out would work. The reason is this. We've taken a long trip in bringing the nation down to some level. To bring that nation back to its place or to our place will also take time. It will take time. The way I look at it is this. Imagine a nation that stays on a mountain, or maybe say a rock that stays on the mountain and rolls down the valley. It's going to take time for you to roll it back up to that valley, to the top of that mountain. That's the way the economy is right now. So I'm going to be, very careful in saying we are going in the right direction. I can only hope. Why? Because those who will make things work are going to be people like, out of that government, really, not the people in government. I've looked at a few things, and you can even tell. In fact, if you look at the number of appointments and the way things are being shaky on the inside, you can tell that, we're still trying to calibrate and find a balance of what to do and how to go about things. I hope you see the way I look at it. I hope you see that.
I appreciate your thoughts there. I'm just going to introduce another guest. We have also joining us this morning Honourable Oluwole, who is a fifth-term member of the House of Representatives and also the Chairman Judiciary Committee in the House of Reps. He sat over the Public Procurement Committee in the House of Reps and also has been Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee also in the House of Representatives. Honourable Oluwole, thank you so much for joining us this morning on Sunrise Daily.
Thanks for having me. Merry Christmas. Thanks for having me. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you as well. I'm sure that you must have been following events. I hope that you've been able to follow our conversation so far, talking about the Nobel laureate who says he personally gives presidents at least a year before he begins to come out with any public criticism. You have been in a position of more than just, when I say public criticism, you have sat on very important committees in the House of Representatives, one of them a statutory committee recognized by the Constitution, which is the Public Accounts Committee. That's something that usually is reserved for members of the opposition in the House of Representatives. And right now, you're still a member of the House of Representatives. So from what you have seen so far, I mean, as a fifth-term member, looking at administration in, administration out, if you were to give your own comments on how the president and even perhaps some state governors have started their work, would you say that there is any reason for Nigerians to be hopeful for a better economy and a better standard of living come 2024?
I'll answer yes. That from the way the incumbent president is carrying his functions on, Nigerians should be hopeful for a better life come 2024. I say this on certain parameters. One, the last government led by President Muhammad Buhari, honestly, well, he tried his best, but his downside was to the effect that he had no economic team. He had no financial economic team at all. But when you look at the team that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu assembled, you give it to them that yes, from their track records, pedigree, he has put in place very sound people, knowledgeable, experienced people. It's of recent that I had an encounter with the Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Bagudu, former governor of Kebbi State. I didn't know him that much, but when I engaged him, we summoned him. When we saw the small amount, the party sum allocated to the judiciary arm of government, we asked him, we summoned him to come and explain to us why they have to subject the judiciary arm of government to a beggar. And the gentleman came, and from his position, I was, I became interested in him, and I had the belief that he is a good man, a round peg in a round hole. And when you put him along the side of Wale Edun, the Minister of Finance and Economy, I can tell you that the two of them, if they work together harmoniously with other ministers, particularly those ministers saddled to man ministries for infrastructures. I say infrastructure, I'm talking about education, health, security, works. If they work together and they also engage the parliament, not on the fire brigade approach, before you bring the budget to the parliament, I expect that these various ministers will have engaged the various committees, because the executives, they don't know it all. The downside of the last administration is to look down on the parliament to assume that they know it all. No, nobody holds a monopoly to knowledge, neither ideas. So if the current ministries, engage lawmakers, engage civil society, engage resource persons, people who have the experience, and they look at best practices in the world, I am very, very hopeful, because the government needs money. The government, as we speak now, a lot of leakages in the system, and once we're able to block all those leakages and get all the resources together, I'm very, very hopeful that come 2024, Nigeria will have cause to smile.
Well, I'm sure that a number of people will be looking forward to smiling. But in the meantime, there are still areas that give us a lot of concern. Yes, the economy is tough, and I know that there'll be many more questions on what other parameters you have seen aside your engagement with the current Minister for National Planning. Security is a very sore point. Just today, or just yesterday, it was reported that 72 people, at least 72 people, lost their lives in attacks that happened in communities in Plateau State, and this is just in just one place. There are a number of other places where a number of people lost their lives. In Ebonyi, for instance, we understand 3 people lost their lives. In Katsina, we understand 8 traders lost their lives in circumstances that were totally avoidable. So for you, I mean, looking at the fact that we still have a war, a security war on many fronts, what exactly are you saying so far? I know that this is the budget defense season, and that members of the National Assembly are just on a small break. They should be back before the new year. What else are you saying? Because some people are saying the way we're currently structured, unless something drastically shifts, we're just going to keep repeating the same cycle and expecting different results, and that will be the definition of insanity. What precisely are you saying that you think is shifting, especially in our security architecture, that will be bringing us better results?
Thank you very much. You see, I've been privileged to chair the Committee on Defense for good 8 years, 2003 to 2011. And I can tell you straight away that the current security architecture we have in Nigeria needs serious, review. One, they don't have the personnel. The Nigerian defense system now, armed forces, police, they don't have enough personnel. You have thousands, millions of Nigerians youth roaming the street that you can recruit, train them, and harm them, because they have forces, they need information, intelligence gathering. That is the most, which is very expensive. People don't know the side of security financing. Intelligence gathering. Before any incident or attack occurs, if you have a sound intelligence gathering, you should be on top of it. You should be on top of it, and if you're on top of it, what do you do next? You mobilize, both by air and land. But if you don't have the personnel and you don't have the finances to get information for intelligence gathering, you have the intelligence community, there. You need to give them enough funds. You need to give them the manpower they require. You also need to give them the tools. As we speak, I don't know how many fighter jets, aircrafts that Nigerian Air Force, I don't know how many they have on ground that are functioning. I don't know how many the Nigerian Army, how many they have on ground. I don't also know the kind of synergy between the 3 tiers of institutions of the armed forces, vis-a-vis other paramilitary institutions, and civil defense, SSS, and all that. So they all need to work together. But more importantly, ma'am, you do not have enough personnel to police Nigeria, neither tools.
Honourable, you would know this because you've had the privilege of chairing the Public Accounts Committee of the House of Representatives, where you've had to hold some of these heads of organizations accountable a great deal. But when you say we don't have enough personnel, but you talked about funding and intelligence gathering and all of that, what else do we need to have done in these organizations to ensure the security apparatus is strengthened in Nigeria?
Sir, I said earlier that we don't have the requirements to police the nation. And what do? If you look at the budget system that we currently operate, they call it envelope system, which in itself violates provisions of Section 18 of Public Procurement Act, which states that agencies, MDAs, should conduct their needs assessment. So in the instant case, I expect that the armed forces, the security sector, will have conducted their needs assessment, identify the good work services personnel that they need, conduct market survey, know the cost, and the law says clearly that they should be anchored in the annual budgetary estimate. So if they do that, and then the Minister of Budget Planning, without any engagement, just sit down somewhere and hand over an envelope, like they did in judiciary. The judiciary arm of government, the whole arm of government, conducted an assessment, and they came to the conclusion that they need 514 billion naira to pay workers, service all their obligations, all the judiciary from all tiers of all the states, their pension and how to be paid by NJC and all that. And then the DG budget sits down within the four corners of his office and hand over an envelope of 165 billion naira. So how do you expect judiciary to function? How do you want them to deliver assessment conducted? So in the instant case, in the case of the armed forces security, so all of them, civil defense, Nigerian DSS, NIA, and the DIA, Navy, Army, Air Force, they've done their needs assessment. They came with what they need to be able to deliver. And don't forget that the Fiscal Responsibility Act demands that, Mr. President, present to the Parliament MTEF. And MTEF speaks to 3 years plan. And when you look at the MTEF and then the Parliament approves them, saying you return it to Mr. President, based on which it brings up its budget. Now, I want us to relate the MTEF and then the budget presented vis-a-vis the needs assessment conducted by the various MDAs, which should be the bedrock, the basis for budget formulation. There are variants. They do not add up. So it tells you that something is missing somewhere. So, but if they engage lawmakers and engage members of society vis-a-vis resource persons, you have such a scenario. You have such a scenario.
Honourable, if I may come in here, yes, you've painted the picture of what these organizations go through in terms of needs assessment and what is required on ground. But is the Budget and Planning Office not also considering a balancing of all the needs that are available and the resources at hand? Don't you think that's also being considered before they put out the envelope system of budgeting that's causing problems already, as you said, violating Section 18 of the Procurement Act? So how do we get to that point where we're balancing what the needs are and the resources available?
Excuse me, the government borrows. I don't see anything wrong in government borrowing, but when you borrowing for what purpose? In the last administration, you go and borrow money for tea, coffee conferences to achieve what? When you have serious problem confronting you, instead of you to borrow and confront those issues that you need. Okay, sir, if you don't have security in place, and you want to build roads in certain areas or certain parts of the country, like if you want to build roads in Zamfara, where I grew up, federal roads and all that, and you have security challenge there, and you don't face that security, then how would you be able to deliver there? But you go and borrow money for wrong purposes. That is the problem that we had in the last administration. You took a lot of loans. You depleted our foreign reserve. So now, I don't see anything wrong for President Bola Tinubu to borrow from various multilateral, bilateral institutions, with cheaper cost, and then confess the issues confronting us. We need to take care. The moment we're able to solve our problems in the areas of security and power, Nigeria will be at peace.
Perhaps one of the issues here, Honourable, is whether or not we as a nation, government, state, federal, are doing enough to motivate these men that you say we don't even have enough. The CDS, the Chief of Army Staff recently told us that 50,000 of his men are not going to spend their time with their families during this Christmas season. And definitely good parents will only be thinking about their families. So, and I know that there are not just men, there are also women in the military who will not spend their time with their families. Do you think, given what you know, we have or are adequately motivating these men whom you say we don't have enough of to do what we need them to do?
I can tell you straight away, they are not adequately motivated. They are not. I exited the entire armed forces and paramilitary institutions. I mean, security, DIA, SSS, and I exited from PENCOM scheme because in other democracies, you don't subject such group of people as if they are doing the normal work other people do. These are people who have sworn to die if death comes their way in the course of their work. So, as we speak, I don't think that our armed forces are well motivated. Find out when they are flying, that their cost of flight, are they discounted? Where do they get their fuel? They buy fuel that costs at the rate at which you and I buy fuel. And these are special people. So we need to do more. We need to run our security system the way it is done in other.
How about their feeding? Do we feed them well?
You go and find out how much is their ration, the amount of money they should be given per day. And if you multiply that amount with the number of people you are deploying, go to the budget of Nigerian forces, go to the budget of Nigerian army if they have enough, if they are giving enough money.
And I'd like to pick up on the budget, Honourable. Okay, you know, we've had cause to have this conversation in time past, and some of the concerns raised about the budget of the Nigerian army is that there is priority placed more on infrastructure development within the force rather than on the welfare of men of the force themselves. And we also heard from the CDS just days ago on the program that some of his men go home with as low as 50,000 naira per month. In the current budget, we gather that it was done behind closed doors, the budget defense of the army. What's different this time that you can tell us about this budget? Will there be priority placed on welfare and on the big concern of recruitment into the armed forces rather than on infrastructure development of the armed forces?
Ma'am, the DG budget and the Minister for Budget and National Planning should sit down with the leadership of the armed forces and the leadership of the committees, various committees manning this various agencies, and look at the needs assessment, the budget, not the envelope budget presented, handed over to them. They need to look at the budget they prepared. They should sit down and dialogue and discuss, right? No serious nations take the armed forces to the market square, or take them to the channels. You need to sit down with them and discuss and be on the same page. If you don't do that, we're just playing to the gallery.
All right, well, let me take you quickly, Mr. Bodigbore. Given all that is happening now, it's clear that the president has quite some work on his hands to do. But the most important of this thing, which Nyota also reiterated, is communication. How? I mean, giving information to people is not communicating with them until there's some kind of feedback. And we've also agreed here, from some of the things that you have said, that, look, we get the information, but the trust is not there. How does government build this trust in a way that they can actually agree with the president that he has good intentions for them in the middle of everything that we're seeing?
One of the agencies that should actually disseminate this information is National Orientation Agency. I actually had a discussion with the DG a while ago. He came on, on our program. If you check the budget they have in that agency, you'll be shocked and you wonder how they can achieve anything. They have close to nothing. Ministry of Information, how much is their budget? Close to nothing. So how do you do things within a government and then the people will know? It's going to be difficult.
Okay. Well, I mean, let's just say from what you have just told us now that government doesn't have the plan to communicate already. But
that's misunderstood.
Well, it's not. I mean, from what you have said, because this is not new. We're not hearing this for the first time.
My point is, I think we really need to fund those agencies so they can run better.
Okay,
that's my point.
Mr. Bodigbore, immediate past SSA to the president on political matters, as well as initiator of G2C interface, government to citizens interface. Thank you so much for your time.
Very much.
We've also had the Honourable Oluwole, who is 5th term member, House of Representatives, and Chairman, Judiciary Committee, House of Representatives, former Chairman, Public Procurement Committee, House of Reps, former Chairman, Public Accounts Committee, House of Reps. He's also told us that he's headed the Security Committee as well. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Truly appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right. So we're back right after now to take on another issue. We discussed it earlier. It's now time to delve into it. Stay with us.